Pretty Little Liars Summer School sometimes deals with disturbing and problematic topics. We provided a list of content warnings in the episode description. Hello and welcome to Dead Ends. I'm Emily.
I'm Brenton.
And this is our very last Pretty Little Liars episode.
We're done. We've reached the end of the road.
We've reached the end of the road.
I guess for now, summer school's ended, but we don't know what the future might hold.
That's true. They did cancel the show though, so odds aren't good.
Yeah, so we have nowhere left to go.
It's been a week, as those of you, especially those of you who live in the U.S. or who don't live in the U.S. but get any sort of news on U.S. politics, which I do feel like, not from like a narcissistic standpoint, but from a like global power in air quotes standpoint, everyone knows that we had an election and it's not good.
No.
Things are not good here. So we just really wanted to address that because we think it's ironic timing, I guess, that we're finishing a show that after hundreds of episodes finally came around to this idea, or not finally came around, but like that really like hammered in, especially in the current revival of Pretty Little Liars, really focused on the horrors of men and existing as a woman. And I just think it's horrifically ironic that this is where we are now. Again, but different and worse. Yeah. So we just really wanted to address that because I think it's probably going to come up quite a bit in this and future conversations. And also because, that's where we are. And so if we look a little somber or miserable, it's because we're a little somber and miserable.
Yeah. And then just to, tie it back into the show of the figure of Wes and what Wes is at the end of this series and what Wes has always been, and I was laughing at in earlier episodes too, where it's like it's hard to be a white man.
That's where we live now. That is a large vocal group in this country, and how much power they have is the amount of power we give them. So I think that's also like an important, like I think thinking about the way they do this episode and the way Tabby kind of like refuses to be a part of his thing, and like really like owns her story is, I guess, really inspirational in a way, or at least like a way to frame this that can kind of make you go, okay, there's another option. Because I do think fiction and movies, television, books, things like that are so important when you're looking for glimmers of hope and ways to fight oppression and ways to live in a world that is designed to mock you and watch you fail and hurt and kill you.
Yep, there's a very easy line. We'll talk about it, especially in the last episode, that you could read all of this on. It's dead on. It's dead on what contemporary like politics and society is, even before the election. But we, it's coming at it with a hammer, so you really understand like what it's talking about and things. And it just happens to be heightened by an election where overwhelmingly it seemed like there's still counting votes and whatnot. Elected a man who used racist, misogynistic, homophobic material in all of his campaign speeches, his campaign promises, and everything. So I guess you can't come in hard enough.
I think another interesting thing to talk about too in relation to this and politics is like individualism versus community. And I think one of the things I like about all of the Pretty Little Liars shows is that it is a group, usually of girls, and then we get some boy add-in, but that have decided they are going to help and protect each other. And when they hit the most trouble is always when they do things by themselves or when they act too individually. And I think that's a really important kind of lesson and thing to really think about in this time, and like how we can move from here and how we can help those in our community, and how we can do better is by really thinking about our community and what's the best for our community. And I think we live in a world where people are more focused or have been taught to be more focused on themselves than on the people around them. Mm-hmm. And I think it seems especially our young men in general, men as they age too, are really, and white women, we don't get out scot-free, are really focused on how it affects me, which also white women voted against their own self. Anyway, but how it affects me versus how it affects everyone. When like, if you take care of your community, you live a better life. Your life is so much better when the people around you are doing well. Like, we can all succeed. This isn't pie.
That's right. There can be free lunches.
Exactly. And we should be giving them in schools.
That's right. Completely agree there. But so just to follow on to community, I mean, you know, there's plenty of things that you can read and go out there. But I mean, I think you've done a really good job of this, of like, here's the things we're going to go do this weekend. So I don't know if you just want to throw out.
Yeah.
Like...
So one of the things that I think is really important. So we are privileged white people who live in California.
Hello.
We have a very different reality, and we live in there's parts of California, and I grew up in a very red part of California. So I can empathize with what it feels like to be a blue dot in a red area. But I was still in California. So I still had a level of privilege that I know a lot of people in those areas don't have. Because California was going to protect me even if my neighbors weren't. But where we live, it's fairly liberal. We live in a small community that is fairly liberal and privileged. It's kind of I guess it's a coastal elite area if you want to play with that language. But it's very artsy and like old. It's like one of the top cities to retire. It's like it's an amazing area.
You could tell by the demographics too.
Yeah. We are the youngest people by like 30 years in most areas. And I love it. Yeah. But so before all of this, one of the things I wanted to do to get more involved was to help fund city things. So our city has a city center that does like adult dance classes and I think they do language classes, and like, I mean, they also do youth things, and we have really good schools and really good youth programs. But we signed up for an adult Argentine tango class. Mm-hmm. So we are also the two youngest people in that class. It's not a very big class because it's not a very big city. But we signed up for that because I thought that was one way before all of this that I was like, oh, that's fun. We took ballroom before our wedding. I thought it'd be fun to like take another dance class. And I was like, I want to do something. I'd rather do it at a place that supports the city versus taking like classes at an Arthur Murray or another place. And it's cheaper. So I was going to take an adult ballet class, and I looked up the ballet studio in this city. It's like $100-ish a month for the classes, which is fair. But at the city center, it's $50. So it's one of those things that it's like, look for places that you can both save money and be involved, and get involved and meet people that aren't just people you would meet casually and naturally. Like, the other people in our Argentine tango class are in their like 50s, 60s. Like, that's not necessarily like the people we're going to meet, like if we went to a bar or, I don't know what else we would do. Our town is not very, very hopping, but when we lived in San Francisco, like,
right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It gives you a different sense of community. Another thing we did was we went to the library, because supporting your local library is very important. And you can use Libby if you want to check out ebooks. You just have to have a library card from your local library, and then you can do it through Libby, so you don't even have to leave your house. Once you have the library card, it's really easy to do.
And then I think it's Canopy is the streaming service through the library where you can watch things.
And you can also, at your library, just in case you didn't know, you can rent like items. So like, you can rent like a nail gun. You can rent like an Instant Pot. You can rent like, and it depends on your local library. And if your library doesn't have something, oftentimes book, material, movie, what it is, they can get it from another local library.
Yeah.
So there's so many things in so many ways, also because I think people are going to be financially strapped. Like, this is an easy, free way, besides your transportation to the library, to get things you need to do things and to support an organization, because the more people who use the library, the more they can argue for funding. Another thing we did was look up local political organizations that we align with, so that we could go to their meetings and see what they're like, and see if we like the vibe and what they're supporting. And like, I think it's interesting because a lot of them right now, they're like kind of main points when you look at their websites, they don't include women's rights in the same way because we have them and had them until the overturn of Roe v. Wade. So it's something that I'm looking for and I'm asking questions about because to me that's important because I don't want women to die.
Yeah. Centering bodily autonomy.
Yes, exactly. Bodily autonomy. Another thing we did was we went to our local bookstore because we know they are progressive and LGBTQ friendly and pro women and all of those things. So we like to go spend money at stores that support the people we care about. And a lot of bookstores have book clubs where you can also meet people and build community and have discussions and make friends and people that you may not meet in a normal or in a working situation.
Right.
We also have a comic book store that has like a game night. So like there's lots of ways to do that and just to get involved. We're trying to find more ways to get involved and really be active in things because the world doesn't change unless we change it. And so we have to do the work. And it sucks. Like it would be much nicer if I could just stay at home and be like, the world should be like this. And I didn't have to do anything. But that's not how that works.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have the time and the privilege, whether it be the money, the time, whatever it is, like you have to get involved. If you want this place to get better, you have to get involved. And there's no sitting out. And there's no, you can take some time more and like take breaks, take care of yourself. You don't need to go. But make sure that you're doing something and you're not just sitting in it. Because at least for me, I feel better when I'm actually trying to make change versus just sitting at home being like, this place is awful and we are awful people.
Yeah. And if there's one thing to take away, I think, too, from the list of things that you mentioned that we're doing is that community doesn't just have to be going to marches and things. And if you're, it's just getting out and doing things and meeting people and being involved in that way. Not, it just connecting with people through activities and things is also a way of building community. It doesn't just have to be, the intimidating part of like doing something hard political work or something like that. There's other ways for you to start dipping your toes in. And
meeting people and having conversations and learning their perspectives and expanding your worldview or expanding theirs.
Yeah, which is a huge part. Because people don't, you don't hear things until you don't know things until you hear things a lot of the time.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. I grew up privileged. I still am privileged. And there's I wouldn't know a lot of things if not for talking and hearing other people say things. Oh, that's how that is? Well, I didn't experience that. Well, yeah, but it's because you're privileged. So, I'm not saying go up to every white man, but there's probably other people that maybe even look and talk and walk like you, especially like I'm not advising like women to go out and stick their necks out like that all the time. Or queer people if someone's especially caustic because you just don't know. But, if it's in a good environment and things, you can have a conversation,
And if you feel safe and you're privileged to do it. Like as a white woman, I feel safe talking to white women. I also feel safe talking to white men because what are you going to do? Yeah. I'm not particularly scared of them, but I live in an area that I feel safe. So there's a huge difference there.
Yeah, completely.
And if I stop feeling safe, then that becomes a different conversation.
Yeah, protect yourself.
You have to. It's interesting because I did bring up individualism versus community, but like you can't jeopardize your safety.
Yep.
So you have to decide how much of your safety you're willing to jeopardize. Actually, is the correct way, because like when you go to a protest, you are jeopardizing your safety, and I feel comfortable with that. So you have to decide what you feel comfortable with.
Yep.
How much of your safety are you willing to jeopardize for a cause?
Yeah.
And I want you to like really think about it, because like sometimes you're going to be uncomfortable. It's also, I really like online. I've heard a conversation that like you're not entitled to comfort, you're entitled to safety. And so like having uncomfortable conversations is part of the work and it's part of your job, but being safe is a requirement, or like should be a requirement. You should feel safe, but you don't need to feel comfortable. And I think getting comfortable in the uncomfortable is something we all need to do.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess just to kind of make the impossible pivot over, but we'll do a little bridge here. That I think the other thing of what's interesting about also this series is we're wrapping it up here. And as we move into Riverdale and other series which won't do this, and that you've brought up before, is that these shows have constantly centered women. So when you say that it is, you're like, oh, it's a group of women like coming together and stuff. And, that's what these shows have been about, and they've, especially this one is like speaking to the intersectionality of like friend groups and modern friend groups in that way. But these stories have always centered women's issues, women's fears, and that's how they like drive a lot of the plot things, for better or worse in some cases, but mostly for the better, of like you telling this story of girls that are afraid and what are those fears, pulling from reality. And we've talked about that many times over this, but as we kind of wrap up the PLL series as a whole, I think it's good to keep that in our mind.
Yeah, like I get why Imogen beans Johnny with a tool. She's scared.
Uh-huh. Well, even like going back, the original series, it's all the way through this of Emily being gay, bodily autonomy. That's all the way through these. The way that people try and drive a wedge between all of them. So. Yeah. Well, there we go. Anyways, I can pull up synopsis for these. I think we both like the end of this series. I think a little bit better than the first one.
Oh yeah, I think this is much better. I think this is unfortunately more realistic. Like,
at least the ending, because
you know what I mean. Like it's believable.
Oh yeah,
because like
it's way heightened of like what's going on within the town and stuff, which we'll talk about that more. But like the main villain's thesis of like why they're doing things is like, oh yeah,
It's also interesting that the church it's almost like a red herring. The church has like less involvement. And so I don't know if that was going to happen like in a subsequent series, you know what I mean? And we just never got there because they canceled the show, or what.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think is very rushed about the end of this, because that's like how they hand wave away while Wes has all these people. It's like, oh, if you read between the lines, he's saying that Wes was able to talk all these people that were part of the church into this because they're susceptible and part of the church.
No, it was the people in Spooky Spaghetti, I thought.
He leveraged the people from the church to be his, what does he call them?
I thought they were just from Spooky Spaghetti.
His proxies.
Yeah.
It was also the churchgoers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I think that's why it's at the servers are at the, or no, the servers are at the theater.
Servers are at the theater.
But, that's why he uses the church.
I thought, because Kelly's mom is like, oh, like I think it could be Mrs. Lansbury, that the church wouldn't that they weren't related, because wouldn't she know?
If if the members of the church were like the kids of the church,
yeah, were part. Like, how would Wes have gotten to them?
Yeah,
I thought it was only on Spooky Spaghetti.
I think it's supposed to say that these were all being like attracted by Wes through like Spooky Spaghetti and stuff, and reaching out that way.
Interesting.
I think that's what it was. Again, like I think that's the real worst part about this season of only being 8 episodes. It's like this.
I needed more. Like I needed a full deep dive into like what's going on.
Right, of like why these people are now trying to kill them in the streets of Millwood. It like jumps up by like 10 degrees in that last episode. But with very little connection. It's just like Wes going, and then I like started Spooky Spaghetti and pulled all these people, but I needed my proxies. That's what he keeps calling them. In my synopsis, I put Spooky Spaghetters.
Love it.
But Wes's whole deal is very realistic. And that's what I was laughing at a few episodes ago, of just like, he's so pathetic. And he is still pathetic.
Yeah, but he's pathetic and he has power, and that's what makes men terrifying.
Yes, exactly. A bunch of people that are supposedly like-minded too. Yeah. That's pretty wild. Well, but before we even get to the reveals on Wes, we got some other things to talk about. So, I wrote the notes again because I was spending about an hour per episode transcribing the notes from fandom because I didn't want to have to read the verbatim. So I decided it's just better if I write the notes. So these are a little bit breezier, but here we go. Chapter 17. Chapter 17.
I was like, no.
The Boogeyman, which having written and seeing in the subtitles of this, is spelled Bogeyman. I thought it was 2 O's, like boogie.
No, it's like bogeyman.
Boogeyman. A boogeyman.
I think a lot of people say bogey.
Bogeyman?
I feel like that's a thing.
Interesting. I I'm just always thought having a boogie was 2 O's. Anyways, Imogen has an obvious dream with Estelle and her mom when her mom turns into Bloody Rose. We find out the girls are all at a diner after the Bloody Rose reveal at the end of the previous episode where Imogen saw her mom's face. Imogen's a big wreck as the friends all try and comfort her at a diner and try to sort through what was going on with her seeing her mom as Bloody Rose. Jen feels bad for messing things up with Shawn and Noah says she chooses her. Noah tells her they need to do things the right way, and Jen says, well, maybe you don't tell Shawn about the cheating thing. Okay. Greg, yeah, this is going to go great. Greg visits Farron to check up on her, and they end up hooking up. Imogen has another dream where she's back in her house and goes into her mom's room and finds Dr. Sullivan doing her makeup, and on the vanity she sees a mask for her mom and Bloody Rose. Tabby gathers everyone to figure out who Bloody Rose is. They all run down who it could be. She even has like a little whiteboard where they got all the suspects. Tabby thinks it's a woman, but does bring up that the person must be good at making masks. Tabby thinks it's Chip's mom. Ding, ding, ding. Tabby, we have a winner. But Imogen thinks it's Dr. Sullivan. They wonder how to get to see her, and Imogen leaves a voicemail pretending to be in distress and gives an intensive performance, and everyone is impressed by her. Tabby's going to talk to Christian. Farron will follow up with Kelly. Mouse will continue. It's so funny that across both of these episodes, like Mouse is like, and you have nothing to do for me, so I'll continue sitting at my computer. Mouse will continue to monitor Spooky Spaghetti, and Noah will deal with her own shit. Farron visits Kelly, who's angry with her, wrecking Redemption House. Pastor Malachi apparently got scared off and left a voicemail with her mom. Interesting. Farron tells her about Bloody Rose and thinks it's Martha, but Kelly won't listen. Farron asks about Sandy, and Kelly's like, well, she's on the Cape. Farron says, well, let me know if you get a red rose. Farron asks Christian about the mask. Not Farron. Tabby asks Christian about the mask. Wes is back at work and says he quit and he's leaving Millwood and is going to crash with a friend in LA. And then Wes apologizes for being a dick. And he also recommended the two of them as co-managers.
They're children.
To which I brought up, do other people work here?
I also okay, so this episode has a lot of things that don't make sense because we have this where they're children. They can't own the building. That's not our co-managers. They can't. I don't think a 16-year-old. I mean, you can legally. I don't think that's a good move. But then also in a minute we'll get to it with Farron, where she gets in trouble and they're like, "You have higher firepower." I'm like, she's a child. Like no one in their right mind gives a 16-year-old higher firepower.
Right. She's just a shift manager.
Yeah, she's like a team lead. She can report people.
Right. It's
very
so
strange.
Funny. Yeah, especially how that shakes out with like the law too of like what he's like threatening to do. It's like, well, we have to open up this inquiry.
I'm like, sir, you're gonna get arrested. She's a child. That's how this works. Fun fact.
You let someone, yeah. They would come back on you for like kids letting a kid drown.
Sorry, but
no, it's so funny. And we also learned that the people who own the theater's last name is Orpheum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Noah breaks up with Shawn. Shawn is upset and asks what else is going on, and Noah's like, nothing. Kelly calls Sandy's mom, and her mom says Sandy's in Billwood, and Sandy texts her every night.
Mm-hmm.
Coach meets with Farron. String Bean, which is a name from Riverdale. I've never commented on this before because this guy was not important. This is the guy who almost let the kid drown. His name is String Bean. This is the most Riverdale-ass name that has ever existed. Which you'll find out in a few weeks when we start covering it. String Bean filed a wrongful termination, so he has to open an investigation, and the coach recommends Farron talks to a lawyer. Oh my God. For an internal investigation at your little pool? What the fuck? Christian is excited to be a co-manager, but Tabby is distracted by worrying about Bloody Rose and thinks she sees her at the front door. Christian asks what's wrong, and Tabby goes to tell them, but they get interrupted by Billy Crane, who's a film location scout who asked to speak to the manager to arrange a tour for his director of the theater. Tabby's like, well, that's us. Imogen has her session with Dr. Sullivan, tells her about Bloody Rose, and then says, I think it's you. Dr. Sullivan tells her a story about meeting Archie Waters. In one of her sessions with Rose, she told her about Archie being trapped in a cage at her house. Hey, Dr. Sullivan, when I got arrested, I left my son in a cage. Can you go check on him? Dr. Sullivan...
like a year late. Like, how long has she been there? like a couple months, a year? What's the vibe?
I mean, he had some snacks, but Dr. Sullivan went by herself and found Archie's cage empty.
I would never do that. And no one in their right mind would either. Like, if you were working with someone, if you in general met someone and they said, before I got arrested, I left my son in a cage.
You call the police.
Yeah, and I mean, like, do I like the police? No, but am I going to go into that house? No.
Let them deal with it.
Exactly. That's
Dr.
not my problem.
Dr. Sullivan's like, I need to take care of this myself. And then it ends up blowing up on her.
It's what did I say about individuals?
That's right.
Though, I mean, I don't really consider the police a community, but
No, they're not.
Like your community, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can read about how they try and pretend like they're part of the community with like officers. What are they called? Like officers that are part of your community. Like a program to make you feel better about having the police around, but essentially it just uses to crack down on them harder. You can read about it in The End of Policing. It's a good book.
Okay.
I forget what the term is called. But she found Archie wearing a mask. She called the police a few days later and he was gone. Years later, she had a son named Sebastian. When he was a teen, he went out jogging at dusk and never came home. They found his body days later with stab wounds on a giant wooden A. Dr. Sullivan thinks it was Archie but doesn't know. Dr. Sullivan says she failed her son and Imogen, but maybe she can help Imogen now. Kelly sees her mom trimming red roses in the backyard. Uh-oh. She asks about Sandy, and Martha says Pastor Malachi took the call, but I believe her mother called to let us know she was leaving. Martha says we should visit the cemetery tomorrow to visit your sister's grave. Mouse works at the pawn shop as a dad and son come in selling his laptop. The son is wearing a Spooky Spaghetti t-shirt and has a bandage on his forehead, and Mouse is freaked the fuck out. Mouse sees on Spooky Spaghetti that people are saying there's going to be a blood atonement if Archie is executed by the state, and then later Mouse tells Ash she has to try and help, and Ash agrees to help. They film a video with Mouse's blurred face pretending to be Angela and calls for people to not shed blood as Archie will join her in heaven soon. Farron calls her mom worried about the investigation, and Corey pumps her up and is just like, you are strong. You can get through this. Believe in yourself. Shawn pumps iron and gets mad about Noah breaking up with him and puts together that she's probably with Jen. Tabby finds online that the movie is about that the movie scout who came to the theater is trying to film a movie about the Millwood Massacre, and Tabby's hurt and angry that she's being erased because it's going to be a movie by eternal name drop on the show, directed by Ari Aster, starring Sydney Sweeney and Emma Roberts. So I mean, Tabby's like, what the fuck? These two white women? There's really only like one white woman in our group.
Also, like Emma Roberts is like our age, not a little older.
That's the difference between her and Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, there's even a good gap there.
Do you think? Did they just pull in Emma Roberts because of Scream Queens? Has she been in other horror movies?
I don't know, but
yeah, it's funny. Imogen catches Johnny up on Dr. Sullivan. She found nothing online about her son, so she doesn't know if she can believe her. He asks if she wants to spend the night to protect her, and she's like, yes, and then texts Tabby. Tabby tells Christian about Imogen's text. She asks to stay over, and he's overjoyed. Tabby tells Christian about Bloody Rose. Mouse checks Spooky Spaghetti, and people knew it was her, and then dox her and say Lola and her should be the first sacrifice. Ooh, who knew that could have blown up? Tabby goes to work and finds a whole ass film crew. She asks Christian what's going on, and then sees Wes is the director and Chip is working on set. Turns out it's just a nightmare. Farron talks to Coach, gives him a statement from the mother of the child she saved, her log of the summer, and list of grievances from being harassed by the boys, and threatens legal action. Imogen wakes up late for school, but is so happy she got a good night's sleep for once and thanks Johnny for making her feel safe. Tabby and Imogen both arrive late to school. The girls all know they slept over at a boy's house. Ooh. And the girls ask for details after class. And Noah's like, what the fuck? All you did was sleep? You didn't even do anything? They all catch up on their respective plots this episode. Mouse warns that all of them might be in the crosshairs of the reckoning. Dr. Sullivan calls Imogen and is like, I can prove my story. Kelly and Martha visit Karen's grave. Martha says Karen wouldn't have been in the rafters if not for those girls who played the video of Karen. They will atone soon. Christian and Tabby go to visit Wes, but his apartment is empty except for a few pieces of furniture. Tabby plans to make her own Millward Massacre movie instead, to stick it to the other people that are doing it and tell her story. Christian's like, well, we should actually just get out of Millwood and avoid all this altogether. And Tabby's like, well, I can't leave everyone behind. Maybe Bloody Rose will follow me. Tabby says, I will survive, and on August 1st, we'll start shooting my movie. Mouse's computer teacher helps her to try and crash Spooky Spaghetti. He's going to need a couple days to see where it's hosted. Martha and Kelly have awkward family time, and Kelly says, let's go to the closet to pray for Karen, but I'll make you some tea before we start. Dr. Sullivan and Imogen meet at her son's grave, and she asks for Imogen's forgiveness. Dr. Sullivan says they're originally from Millwood, and Imogen goes to visit her mom's grave. Noah comes home in Jen's distress. Shawn came by and figured out they were together. He was yelling and cursing and punched a hole in the wall. Noah grabs a bat to go after him. Kelly trapped her mom in the prayer room, and Martha thinks she drugged her as well. Kelly calls Farron to meet her at the pool. Farron and Greg grab pizza at Pinball Pizza. Farron quit lifeguarding. She's been trying to prove she was strong, but realized she doesn't have to prove herself to anyone. She's got strong for the girls. Imogen leaves her mom's grave and notices red roses on a tombstone. It's Karen Beasley's. She goes to Sebastian's grave and Dr. Sullivan's gone. Imogen runs back to her car and finds the radio on and rose petals scowled everywhere, but Dr. Sullivan gone. Mouse finds Rose Waters on the couch with Lola. Farron comes home and realizes she missed Kelly's voicemail and text and heads off to the pool. Kelly sits alone on the edge of the pool as Bloody Rose comes up behind her and she screams. Noah breaks all the windows and headlights on Shawn's car and he comes out yelling. They argue and she eventually tells him to stay away from her and Jen or she'll beat the shit out of him. Farron gets to the pool, finds Kelly face down in the pool and Bloody Rose on the other side of the fence. The end.
Okay. Where was this diner they started this episode at?
I don't know. I was wondering if it was like the diner.
Was it the ice cream parlor?
It didn't look like the ice cream parlor. Like, I thought it was the diner that she might have worked at.
Maybe.
But that's it. But I mean, they all made a big deal that it wasn't in town.
Yeah.
So
anyway, it doesn't matter. I was like, where is this? New location on the last couple episodes?
Right, exactly. We had this set. We never got to it. We always wanted to shoot more in a diner.
What's Greg's angle with Tabby? Is there one?
Farron.
Farron, sorry. I don't know why I wrote Tabby.
I did the same thing in my notes, and I was like, ooh, not a good look for the white guy. I
wonder if I copied it
from me. I think he just likes her. I think we just after all our shit that we've not this shit we've talked about. After all the things in this series of exactly what you're talking about, that men, the violence of men toward women and how dangerous they are. It kind of let Greg off the hook.
Yeah. Sorry, I yelled that a little. We really let Greg off the hook.
Yeah.
That's what I was like. And also, I was thinking about the situational irony of Farron's phone ringing from Kelly while she's with Greg. And so what, what, why?
Why are they together?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it would seem like it would be fodder for some uncomfortable conversations with Kelly. Maybe,
but we don't have those.
Or maybe revealing Greg being I've been. Well, he kind of only does it a little bit of I've been a real shit to you, Farron, but actually I respect you so much.
But he respects her because he thinks she's hot.
Right, but he doesn't ever come to terms.
So he doesn't respect her at all.
Yeah.
Only respecting women who you think are hot. Is not respecting women.
Exactly. He thinks she's hot because she's strong.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, ooh.
What is...
I mean, he kind of comes around a little bit on that, though.
Yeah.
He's because it's also, he finds her attractive because of her strong personality, too, and things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit more there. But, yeah. It's, again, they let him off the hook.
Speaking of Farron, what the fuck is her relationship with her mom? Her mom literally abused her.
Yeah, and then
it's this whole season's very odd about how they're treating this relationship.
Yeah, because her mom would always say this to her, and Farron always was but it was a way to control Farron in season 1, and in this it's just to pump her up. It's they have no, again, the shortened time frame. They have no time that they just kind of toss it all out, and it's just well, we need to have Farron have a moment of realization here that she got strong and she doesn't have to prove it to anybody, though. She just has to be strong and she wants to be strong for her friends and for herself. But Yeah, exactly what you said. It was just like, but she has this fraught relationship with her mother.
Who abused her.
Uh-huh.
Her mother abused her. Like, this whole season, she's like, oh yeah, mom, like, go do it. And I was like, oh, she just wants her mom out of the way. And it's like, oh no, she actually like still talks to her mom.
Right. It's like, well, she kind of like apologized, but everything's paved over now.
It's strange.
Yeah. Okay. I brought up this book series again, but I was just reading a little bit this morning. I'm reading the second book in the Last Herald Mage trilogy, and there's someone in that who has a heart-to-heart with our main character who was abusive to them in the first book, and has a heart-to-heart with them, and it doesn't completely resolve everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they eventually come to an agreement of like, I don't think you're an aberration and a monster, and like, I am sorry for the way you were treated, but they still have like an icy relationship between them because there's still so much going on in like past history that doesn't just get washed away.
No.
Whereas in this, it's like, well, we turned the page.
And it's over. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's like, we don't have enough time for this. And it's gone.
Does Mrs. Beasley know that Pastor Malachi is dead?
I thought she totally did, because like, I'm like, this is just, feeding all my theories from the end of the last episode, but no. So is Wes somehow calling these people with the voice?
Or texting?
Yeah. Well, it said he left a voicemail.
Oh. Uh-huh.
So I understand Sandy's mom.
Yeah, she's getting text messages.
Mm-hmm. But, and then who did Pastor Malachi talk to? Did he actually talk to Mrs. Langsbury on the other side when he was like, oh, Sandy's going to be gone for a while?
Yeah. It was Mrs. Langsbury instead of Sandy's mom that called?
Yeah. But how did it work with did Wes call Martha and she didn't pick up that it wasn't Pastor Malachi? There's a lot of leaps there.
There's a lot of leaps. And why would Mrs. Langsbury kill Pastor Malachi?
Right. See,
like, what's the motivation for killing Pastor Malachi?
Is it to like essentially remove the person at the head of the church so that they can then use the people there for their spooky spaghettiness?
They could like swoop in as the cult leaders.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting.
It is, because it doesn't line up with anything else where it's like this purity thing.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, because you could see why she would target like, say, Sandy and the other kids of like...
Unless she knew about him and Mrs. Beasley.
No, that could be it. There you go.
But why didn't she kill Mrs. Beasley?
Yeah, what? Maybe because... Yeah, then I think it would still have to go back to some sort of power thing. I don't know. We only really get the explanations from Wes himself. Bloody Rose is very backgrounded in the next episode.
That is true.
She just kind of like sits there and nods her head next to him.
Typical man. Even when you think the villain's going to be a woman, it's a man.
Yeah. Well, at least in this series. In the original PLL series, it is a woman.
Yeah. Let's talk about Noah. Noah's making choices. Are they good choices? No, girl.
But they do come back around on us being like, what's wrong with Shawn? It's like, here it is. He gets angry.
He punched a hole in the wall.
Uh-huh.
But then she takes a baseball bat to his car.
Can you imagine?
Like, that sounds so fun. Like, from a catharsis level, I'm like, beating the shit out of a car with a baseball bat sounds really fun.
Yeah.
But anyone else feel like doing that?
Like, it's shitty and terrible and violent for Shawn to come over and intimidate Jen like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, absolutely should not do that. But can you imagine your girlfriend cheats on you, breaks up with you, and comes over your house and breaks the shit out of your car?
I was thinking about, I was like, okay, girl, that's a little fucked up. Like,
yeah, but I get it. Like, there's a response needed of being like, you stay the fuck away from me because you're violent. Like, that's not cool, but also
uh-huh.
Yeah, and it's so funny that us being like, Jen kind of sucks, and the show does not think so.
No, the show doesn't think so at all, which I think is interesting and like a little unfortunate, because I think like, it's okay that Noah doesn't want to be with Shawn, but because they make it about Jen, it feels less about Noah. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I wish it was more about Noah and Noah being like, this is what I want and this is what I feel and I believe. And so it's another one of those where I'm like, it doesn't feel like good representation.
No. And the whole time, Jen isn't listening to Noah. Like Jen is always doing her own thing. And then Noah has to go like clean it up or remedy it. And there's no growth for Jen in that department because it makes sense. Like of like the background for Jen and what she is, that she would be like, I have to do things on my own and I'm a little scrappier about these things. So that all lines up, but there's no growth from her to realize that like, okay, we may still do these things, but we need to do it together. Like we need to look out for each other in this way. But there's nothing like that. So then it just still leaves like this weird. And also she keeps calling it a bling ring. Is that big of a movie? Do people know that reference? I mean, thought that movie kind of came and went.
It was like really big when it came out.
Okay.
I feel. I didn't watch it.
I didn't either. I think for most people it's kind of like, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's why I never went and sought it out, because people were like, it's okay.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. But I mean, I get it when she says, like when they say it, like I'm like, oh yeah, I know what a bling ring is. Like, you know, it works as a reference.
Robin Hood? I guess they want to use.
No, it's not all like.
It's not righteous in that way.
Yeah, it's not all like stealing from the rich to give to the poor. It's like stealing from the rich because you are poor, which is also valid. But it's just a different narrative, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about Dr. Sullivan and the Sebastian thing.
Yes.
Where does this fit into the PLL timeline? Like, when was Sebastian killed?
Yeah.
And did we know Dr. Sullivan had a kid when we were on PLL?
Not that I remember. I don't think that we got any morsels of her background on original PLL.
No.
It was like we always kind of like maybe like motioned toward it and then she was gone or captured. I don't think scared off. I don't think so. So I don't know where that lines up. Like, when did she move to Rosewood? She was working in Millwood, but it seemed like okay. She was working at Radley, so she would have been in Rosewood, and then raising her son there, I assume. But then she buries him in Millwood because they were from there.
Yeah, that's where their family is or whatever.
So I guess maybe that's just where the family plots are.
But where was her family when she was in the hospital, as Imogen brought up?
Right, and she was like, don't worry about it. And then when we get the reveal that she is still doing her like book shit at the very end, and Archie, because we need to have someone that Archie comes around and kills, for whatever reason, even though Archie wasn't a part of the season in one iota, that she's still like, did you kill my son? So it's not like a bullshit story.
No.
It's a really weird thing to throw in here to have it go also, absolutely nowhere.
Why would Archie be so mad that she found out and like went there to see if he was there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, why would that be motivation to kill her son?
Yeah. Talk about above and beyond.
It's not a proportional response.
Mm-mm. You had the West Wing on last night. What was what does Bartlett say where he's like losing his shit because he wants to bomb a shit at a country because
they shot down the doctor that he liked?
Uh-huh.
I mean, he's complaining that he's like, well, what's the purpose of a proportional response?
Yeah, I think he's like,
what's the merits of a proportional response? And like, why would we be proportional?
Yeah, but it isn't like the tone of it. It's just like we should utterly destroy them. America comes in because he's angry.
He's angry. He's not actually acting on it, but it's like he's so mad about, because he knew one of the people on one of the planes that shot down in this episode, that he's like, so they take down our planes and then we like take out their comm signal. Like, it's just not, he's like, that's like, he wants revenge.
So that's what I was thinking, is this is Archie right now.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why I think men shouldn't be allowed to be in charge of things, because they just get really emotional.
Yeah. You said it.
Well,
what is going to happen? What's the metaphorical hole in the wall that the Shawns of the world is going to punch?
Oh, I think we've seen that. Why did Bloody Rose go after Kelly?
It seems like to set up Farron,
But like, how did Bloody Rose know Farron was gonna show up?
Because then Bloody Rose is like, what are you gonna do, Farron? And then Farron goes to save her, and Bloody Rose is like, okay, and then leaves.
Yeah, but like, what if Farron hadn't gotten there in time?
She dies, I guess.
Like, how did Bloody Rose time that?
I don't know.
Because Farron was ignoring her phone. Like, we don't know how long Kelly sat there.
Uh-huh. So then is Bloody Rose just like waiting? She's just waiting at the pool until a car pulls up? It's like just sitting there crouched in the corner like, Jesus Christ, my legs hurt.
Things I do want to mention. I do love the Christian sleeping on the floor when Tabby sleeps over.
Very cute.
Because I'm like, that's very cute. He's very respectful of her hesitations and boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love how we show her versus Imogen, because Imogen is still more okay with physical intimacy, to an extent, you know, but is not like that. The two people can have a similar experience and be traumatized in different ways, obviously, because Imogen had a baby, you know what I mean? There's different journeys, but both sexual assault and like the two different responses to it. And there's many more. Like there's lots of different ways people respond to trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of important. And I like that they show them responding in slightly different ways.
Absolutely.
Like they both seek comfort, but Imogen feels safer with someone next to her, whereas Tabby feels safer with someone nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And like what that kind of means for them.
Right. And I think also what's interesting too is even the, you know, men or boys in these scenes, right? And how they respond to these different things of like, you know, Johnny like is straightforward and ass.
Yeah.
And Christian kind of gives Tabby the, he wants it to happen, but he doesn't push her.
No. Yeah, exactly.
He just kind of sits there like, I don't know. Interesting that she's sleeping over.
I mean, like, I have a bed.
Yeah. He doesn't even go that far. And he's like, cool. But just how like, if it's centering women's stories and things, but it even kind of shows it's like, here's how to responsibly take care of a partner, right? Of like being okay with someone's boundaries, and it's going to be different for different people.
Mm-hmm. And they can change.
Yes. Yeah.
I also love that Tabby refuses to abandon her community. Like, I think that's really important too.
That's right.
Like, while I'm like, yeah, Christian, maybe we should all run away.
Yeah.
Like, bring the whole crew. But like, I understand, like, you can't. What about their parents and what about their families? Yeah, it's.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of how I like that a boy presents this and a woman is the one, or a girl is the one that's like, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Like it still kind of shows, I think, the individualism mentally of like boys versus girls in community-based decisions. Like a boy's like, we got to get out to protect ourselves, and I want to protect you because I care about you.
Yeah. Well, Christian also is new.
Exactly.
He's not from this area also, whereas Tabby has grown up in this. She's really close to all these people, and he doesn't know them. So he's only thinking about Tabby.
Mm-hmm. And so it's like, it shows, I think, the difference between that. And not that there aren't times where you should take care of you. You know what I mean? Like there's lots of nuance to that. But I thought it was apropos.
Mm-hmm. Because exactly. I think the difference in what you're saying there of like times when you do need to take care of yourself and stuff is where that collective maybe doesn't meet the needs of what you need to be safe, or if you don't have that sort of community and collective that is available to you and safe.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Tabby does, and it's like, we've been through all this. We help out each other. We support each other, and we use Farron as a battering ram to take everybody down.
Mm-hmm.
Except everybody shows off their skills in the next episode. So
there you go.
Yeah.
You ready for the next episode?
Yeah. All right. The final episode, chapter 18, final exam. Excuse me. Farron jumps in to save Kelly as Bloody Rose watches. She gets her out and performs CPR. The other girls all gather in the pool locker room. Kelly apologizes for Hell House and everything. She doesn't think her mom is under the bandages since she locked her in the closet. The girls go to the Beasleys and find her still locked in. So they're like, she can't be Bloody Rose. Kelly dismisses all the girls to talk to her mom alone.
This is a choice, girl.
It's so funny. That's when I was like, is Kelly up to no good? Imogen catches the girls up on Dr. Sullivan being missing. Mouse tells him about Rose at her house. Apparently, Rose is Lola's old friend, which would make sense because Lola being, Mouse's mom's mother, she would have known Rose because Rose's mom,
Angela, was
would have known Rose.
Friends with the girls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I couldn't put that sentence together. Thank you so much. Rose says she was safe before Mouse found her, and teens have been following her around now. Not youths. Mouse dropped her at Crazy Joe's train car for safekeeping.
And we all collectively go, what the? Mouse has consistently made some of the worst decisions on the show.
I know. Why?
Once again, talk to your friends. Make a plan.
Put her in the sketchy train car. But when they go back, she's missing. What a shock. And the rose petals are spread on Joe's bed. They worry about Rose going after the moms. Bloody Rose. They rush back to Tabby's house and find Sid fine. She got a vase of roses that says, and she says, thank you for the flowers, and the card that says, I love you more than life itself. The girls are like, oh, shit. The next morning on the news, there is a riot at Ravenswood Penitentiary where Archie Waters is believed dead. Ravenswood. Interesting. They bulldozed all the ghosts and put in a prison.
I was like, where was the penitentiary in Ravenswood? Ravenswood was like a creepy, it was kind of like our town. It was like a creepy old school town.
That poor town got turned into a prison town, apparently.
We got a prison for ghosts.
Oh, spooky. Still, we it's for profit, so. They all feel it's suspicious, and Deputy Maroon is heading out to confirm. There's a knock at the door to Kelly. Apparently, Martha thinks that Mrs. Langsbury could be Bloody Rose. Imogen and Tabby visit Mrs. Langsbury, and Imogen and Tabby see a vase of roses. Can't be her then, could it? Jen and Noah catch up on the mystery. Jen asks how well they know their new boyfriends. I mean, Jen is on the right track here, but it is just like, Jen, you're just throwing gum in the works.
Jen,
here.
how well do we know you?
Uh-huh. At school, Mouse says Spooky Spaghetti is excited about the prison riot. The principal visits them, and they all failed their Keystone practice exams, so they got to get their shit together for the real one. Tabby says we need
How hard is this test? Like, I don't know because I've never, we didn't live in Pennsylvania, but like, so if someone has and they know, like, is this test like a hard test to pass, or is this really showing us that these girls, because like the high school exit exam that we took, the CAHSE, CAHSE, I think.
Right.
California high school exam, I think is literally what it is. But it is like, I got a perfect score in math when I took it my sophomore year, and like, I can do math.
Yeah.
But like, I wouldn't say that like AP calculus was really hard for me. I did not do well in there. And like this sophomore year, like I got a perfect score in math, and I think I got like 1 point off in the English one. Like, this was a test that like, I don't know a single person that didn't pass on the first try. And maybe that was like the state of the standards at the time I took it, and like the school I was in was pretty low income at times. Like, it had a good variety, but I don't remember it being like a big deal, like to pass it. And like, if you didn't pass it the first year, you just took it again the next year. Yeah. Like, it didn't stop you from going to your junior year.
I don't know how it is in Pennsylvania, but at least for California, they want as many people to pass as possible.
Yeah.
So that's like the incentive behind it. And I mean, obviously, like, people don't, because, they've got their own lives going on and whatever happens that interferes with that. But yeah, they're trying to get as many people to pass as possible. So they're not trying to make it that hard.
No, it's literally like can you do these things like that we think are
it's like the basics, right?
The basics. Yeah. And I'm intrigued. Like, is this test harder?
Mm-hmm.
Because it could very well be, they could have a better school system. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be, maybe.
I don't know.
Tabby says we need all hands on deck to pass our exams, including the partners. And Noah's like, well, I don't know. Maybe Johnny and Christian are a little suspect, which angers Imogen and Tabby. Tabby then points the finger at Jen. They all start digging into each other's dating history, except for Ash. And then Tabby has to calm them all down.
I just love it. They're just like, Ash gets a pass.
It's, oh God, what's the weed movie with Dave Chappelle? God damn it. Okay, whatever. There's a scene where a guy's like, he's quitting his job and he goes, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, you're cool, fuck you.
Uh-huh.
That's exactly it.
That's the trending audio on TikTok from time to time.
Okay, so imagine that I remembered Half Baked.
It was easy once you really.
It's really not that hard. They all start, okay, and Tabby has to calm them all down and offers that they all investigate their partners. Tabby calls Christian's old place of work, but the guy doesn't recognize his name. Imogen interrogates Johnny and asks for his phone. She finds that he only recently texted. It's a really funny scene because he's just kind of like, okay, and hands it off, and she's like just playing like all like bad cop to him. But then he's like, okay, check. Who was the last person I texted? She's like, me. And it's just like, what does it say? It's like, I love you.
Or I miss you or something like that.
Yeah. And he tells her again that he'd never do anything to hurt her. Mouse scrolls Spooky Spaghetti and watches a Reckoning teaser, and it's videos of Bloody Rose killing people, and texts that appears say, "The reckoning is now." Imogen goes back into the hardening freezer to get new ice cream and finds a bunch of dead bodies. She then goes back out to the front with a wrench and starts threatening Johnny, and he tries to talk her down, and then she hits him with the wrench, and then drags him half-conscious into the freezer and locks him in.
Which doesn't really make sense because those freezers don't lock from the inside.
No, and she like locks it from the outside somehow with a key, but like they're intentionally made so you can get out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like they don't. Like I've been in a lot of freezers. Sounds odd, but I worked in an ice cream parlor for like 4 years. I worked for it from freshman year until I left for college, and I'd even come home from college and work there for the first couple summers or whatever. So I worked in an ice cream parlor for a long time, and they made the ice cream on site. So we had a big hardening freezer. That's like the really cold freezer because it's where the ice cream gets cold enough to get hard. I during power outages, we'd have to move all the ice cream into the hardening freezer because it's going to be the coldest. And we had these special like extra jackets and gloves and stuff that like if you were going in the hardening freezers, you're supposed to wear. And so what they would make me do, because I was small, and the only, I guess, girl on the team that wasn't like freaked out to do this, they'd put me back there in the hardening freezer in like 3 jackets with like a light. Like I'd have like a little lantern so that they could like bring in the ice cream. So I'd be sitting on like an empty like plastic 1/2 gallon or 3 gallon bucket of ice cream, just like holding a lantern, like I'm some like weird version of the hermit card from tarot, just like in the dark.
Ooh.
And I knew they couldn't lock me in because like that was one of the reasons why I was willing to do it, was because I knew you couldn't lock it from the outside. Because they would fuck with me. Like I was in high school and like I worked with a bunch of boys. Like I knew they'd fuck with me, and so I was like, as long as I can't get trapped in here. Also, because we didn't really fuck with people that much in the hardening freezer because like it is really cold, and like you like it's it would be really bad. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, having worked a few food jobs, not a hardening freezer, but a deep freeze like that.
Yeah.
They always had a little button that you'd be able to push to get out.
Ours didn't even have a button. It just the door turned. Like there was like a little handle thing that you just couldn't lock from the outside.
Oh yeah. So the ones that I've worked.
These were old though, because this is like the building was built. The company opened in 1929.
Right.
And they remodeled as needed.
It would be a handle that you'd pull on the outside, and then instead of having a handle on the inside, it would be a button, and that would unlock it. It was like you'd push in. So, Tabby investigates Christian's room and finds a mask that matches Imogen's mom. She grabs it and goes to leave when she runs into Bloody Rose at the top of the stairs. She falls down the stairs and lands unconscious, and as she gets a text from Mouse to meet at the pawn shop. The other 4 catch up at the pawn shop. They wonder where Tabby is, and Mouse gets a call that the Spooky Spaghetti servers are at the Orpheum. This is a call from her teacher. The girls run to the theater and find Christian and yell at him to tell them where Tabby is, and he's like, well, I've been trying to call her and she hasn't picked up. Tabby wakes up inside the church confessional. She opens the partition to find Rose dead and her face skinned. Tabby busts out of the booth and finds mass everywhere in the church, Pastor Malachi on the altar dead, paintings of all the Bloody Rose trials, and a final one where a girl is sacrificed. Christian takes the girls to the internet servers in the Orpheum, and there's a note there that they need to check out the movie in screening room 3. A bunch of masked people, oh my god, I wrote in my notes, a bunch of masked people in masks. I wonder what they were wearing. Comes into the church, including one in an Archie mask and a Bloody Rose mask, and they grab Tabby. The movie in screening 3 is a live stream on Spooky Spaghetti of Tabby and what's happening to her at the church. There's only like about 100 people on watching this live. Turns out Mrs. Langsbury is Bloody Rose and is telling Tabby to confess her sins. The man in the Archie mask is Wes. Farron recognizes that the live stream is coming from Our Mother of Holy Grace. West tells Tabby they're shooting / live streaming a horror movie. The girls and Christian go to leave the Orpheum and run into spooky spaghetti acolytes and they try to attack them. They run back into the screening room and lock themselves in. Tabby tells the live stream that Chip raped her and Imogen. As Mrs. Langsbury starts to break down, Wes stops her from attacking Tabby. The Orpheum crew runs for the exit as Christian holds the door for their escape. Tabby asks why Wes is involved, and Wes connected with Chip's mom after Chip's death. Wes, back in the day, had even mentioned to Chip shooting a movie where they kill someone for real, and Chip was Chip was kind of like, what? He said,
he was a rapist, not a murderer.
Yeah. Wes said, exactly. Wes set up Spooky Spaghetti. He created the entire website and then recruited people from Our Mother of Holy Grace. Also, he's a racist. Mm-hmm. The other girls find a car unlocked and Noah...
Even a misogynist and a racist?
Isn't that interesting?
Uh-huh. Everyone take a moment and reflect on the current state of the worlds. Worlds?
Yeah.
Just one, unfortunately.
The girls find a car unlocked on the street and Noah calls Jen to help her hotwire the car. Tabby says he's not getting away with this, but Wes is like, no, I don't want to get away with this. I want the attention.
See, more Jen stuff like that would have been good.
More what?
Like Jen stuff like that, where Noah's like, tell me how to hotwire a car. Like, I can't explain why right now. You know what I mean? Like, that would have been fun.
Yeah.
We don't get a lot of that.
No. Spooky Spaghetters close in on the car, but they get away just in time. Wes continues to brag about the Davy mask and planting it at Christian's, and Tabby knocks him down a peg. He says he's giving her fame as a black final girl. Tabby says, I'm not giving you your performance then. He says you need motivation, and on CRT TVs, as Spooky Spaghetters are outside her, we see that Spooky Spaghetters are outside her house. Wes starts monologuing, and Tabby makes a break for it and jumps out the window. Tabby runs through the woods as Spooky Spaghetters chase her. She's able to hide and take down 2 of them, and then gets in a fistfight with a third. Wes follows on to chase. The other girls arrive at Our Mother of Holy Grace. Tabby arrives at Bloody Rose's cabin. She opens the door to make it look like she went inside, but hides around back. Wes comes up and falls for the trap. The girls find the church empty. Mrs. Langbury breaks out of the confessional, and Farron knocks her out cold. They see the live stream is at Bloody Rose's cabin and go to help Tabby. Tabby traps Wes with a pitchfork inside the cabin. He's like, you don't have it in you to kill me, and then she charges his ass. And we see the pitchfork go through the wall. Great. Tabby walks outside, shell-shocked as the others arrive. They all go inside and find Wes speared to the wall. He wakes up, and Imogen knocks him out with a right hook. They hear a noise and find Dr. Sullivan tied to a chair. 2 weeks later, the girls take their Keystone makeup exams. The girls all go back to having sessions with Dr. Sullivan. Christian is doing okay, and he called the police, and the Spooky Spaghetters didn't get inside. Johnny broke up with Imogen after the freezer, but we can tell in his scene that he's still watching her a little bit, so he's still into her. Jen helped them all study for their Keystone exams. Spooky Spaghetti got shut down. All the Spooky Spaghetters got charged. Sullivan asks if they would like to continue the sessions or stop them, and they all agree to stop the group sessions and thank her for her help. The girls, including Kelly, all get tattoos with FGE and a knife. Final girls... Wait, what is
Final
it?
girl energy?
Yeah, there you go. It's all right. Kelly and Martha agree to no more prayer closet. It's so funny. The girls all find out they passed their Keystone exams as well. Yay!
Woohoo!
Imogen and Tabby catch up later. Imogen asks if Tabby and Christian are still making their Millwood Massacre movie, and Tabby's like, I think I'm done with Archie and Bloody Rose, and maybe we'll make something new. Maybe it'll be about new villains, and it's like 5 of them, and they're these cool girls, and we see in the school a group of 5 girls all wearing masks of the other girls. Would have been season 3, I assume. Sullivan talks to a publisher about her book moving forward. She needs to get sign-offs from the girls, and it tells the publishers that, no worries, I'll be able to get their signatures, those stupid girls.
No, she calls them narcissists.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Her office electricity shuts off, and her door opens to Archie. She gets on her knees and is like, did you kill Sebastian? And he stabs her to death. The end.
Will Farron tell anyone that she hooked up with Greg? Like, is that ever going to come up?
Right. They're like
I know
dating.
it's like very low profile of this whole episode, but I'm just like, girly,
Mm-hmm.
you got a secret.
Yeah. Can you keep it?
Why?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
In other questions, why did the guy that Christian had worked for before not know him? Did you think Tabby called the wrong? They're like, okay, because he lived in New York, right?
She calls like an AMC.
Yeah, so I'm like, how many AMCs do you think there are in New York?
So many. There's probably multiple. It's like, well, that's the Brooklyn one. He's like, I actually lived in uptown. I don't know in New York at all.
Brenton's got the burrows all fucked up, and it's fine.
I only went once when I was about 8.
I've never been, but I did watch Girls, so you know.
There you go.
And Sex in the City. So obviously, I know.
That's right.
No, I don't know. Where was the jail in Ravenswood?
I know. I do wonder what they must have put it up in the intervening. Let's see. Ravenswood was 2014.
What about?
So there's about 8 years there because this takes place in 2022, right? Yeah.
I think so. 2021, 2022.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it's the summer after their.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2022. So I mean, 8 years. So lots changed in Ravenswood apparently, for the worse.
We never find out why Crazy Joe committed suicide.
No.
Okay.
We don't know at all what was up with Crazy Joe. Who the skeleton was.
I was also like from a little Riverdale connection. Mama Beasley is very Mumsy Blossom with the red hair joining the cult kind of energy.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just like, she doesn't have the same like
girl bossery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matriarch girl bossification.
Yeah, Matriarch Blossom is a real piece of work.
If you saw dead people in the hardening freezer, what would you do?
I'd call the police.
Okay, me too.
Again,
these girls never call the police, and so in the original Pretty Little Liars, you're like, oh, it's because they've been threatened and they don't trust the police, and the police are bad. But in this case, like, we literally get rid of the Wilden of this story, and they're still not calling the police.
And I think there's stuff like, even if Sheriff Beasley's in charge, it's like, well, they should dispose of the bodies.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do with them?
Well, but also, like, if you killed him on accident, putting him in the freezer, now they're gonna think you killed everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good look.
Yeah. Would you also break up with someone that knocked you out and put you in the freezer? Even if you know that they've been through a lot?
I don't think that would ever happen to me.
Just saying, if you were Imogen, or if you were Johnny, I mean.
Okay, so I did write down though, like, Johnny understands how much trauma Imogen has, and you can tell in the scenes they show where she's like, we're taking a little, like, we're slowing down, we're taking a break, we're not together right now. But he's like talking to other girls, but he's like watching Imogen, so Johnny's gonna get it back with her. Mm-hmm. And that makes me happy because I think Imogen
just had a little freak out.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, I think I would want to put a pause in our relationship
while I wait for my head trauma to heal.
It's also different because, like, as a woman, if a man hurt, like, if a man, like, I'm a petite woman, so, like, in no situation if anyone, I've had boys tell me they were afraid of me, but I believe that was intellectually. I don't think they were physically afraid of me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, there's a huge difference.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, if a man came at me with a weapon, I would never fucking talk to him again.
Yeah. That makes...
Like, there'd be some extenuating circumstance. Like, you never say never. But for the most part, like, that's it. But when it's reversed, because men tend to have a position of power, I do think it's more forgivable.
At least in fiction.
If I can, what if I knocked you out and put you in a hardening freezer?
I would be scared. You know what I mean? I think the optics in fiction's a little bit, but I think I don't know. That'd be a hard one.
It's like a step. Like, you have to think everything, like, in this is like a step beyond normalcy, at least.
It's heightened absolutely heightened.
But like, Imogen can do no wrong, so I don't care.
Exactly.
She's my Mona, and you're like, oh, like, Mona can do whatever, and I'm like, I don't care what Imogen does. She's my girl.
And you're more right about that than I am. Like, at least, like, on a good bad level, Imogen did not do the things that Mona did. But and speaking of heightened, like, the entire town turns into it's like the town clears out and spooky exactly.
Yeah.
These, like, evil acolytes are running around trying to kill them.
How did Bloody Rose get into Christian's house? And how did Tabby? Like, are the doors just unlocked?
Yeah.
Are Christian's parents never home?
I know, we don't see one iota of this season. Reminds me a whole lot more of the It's gonna be a funny comparison. The beginning of Kingdom Hearts, where it's like,
And they don't have
who
parents.
takes care of all these children?
Who are these children?
Yeah. And there's even like in the first one, it's like, go to bed, Sora, like off screen, and then these kids just never see their parents again. But yeah, I don't. Maybe it's easy enough to get into Christian's house. They were busy because they must have planted the masks and the bodies, right? How long were the bodies there?
I don't know. Like, were the bodies always there? Is that where they were keeping them?
But then
Where were they keeping the other ones?
But then you think Johnny would notice.
Where were they keeping the other bodies to like keep them fresh?
Right. We're moving them to this freezer?
Yeah. Well, and like at like Pastor Malachi's body.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I have a lot of questions.
Mhm.
Wes being in on it though and really being the driving force just fucking makes sense.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Because even though he does have like power, and they really make him this mastermind of like, he set up this entire site where people got suckered in by conspiracy theories. Stop us if you heard this before. And then people essentially drove them to do these like wild things that were under his like narcissistic purview of creating a movie. So he's still like this pathetic guy who like thinks he's aggrieved because like she's getting more attention and things than him. And also his only idea for a movie is like to hurt women. He's like, we're going to do it for real. Even though if he had shot this movie fictionally, it probably would have done okay.
Yeah.
He like sets up this like entire like horror movie plot. So it's funny.
He's a much more like less, not that you really sympathize with Chip, but he's an even less sympathetic villain.
Yeah, and with even like whatever is going on with Archie in the first season, because it's like he was abused as a kid, kept in a cage and a monster. It's like, no, Wes is just the worst shitty person imaginable. And then he suckered in Mrs. Langsbury, who was
grief-stricken.
And
still wrong.
Exactly, still blames these girls. And like you can kind of get the idea that probably he fostered that.
These goons live streaming this death is why I say defund the police. Like, what do you mean that like no one's monitoring this website?
No one can.
Also, an adult. So this is what really got me. So Mouse tells her computer teacher about this website, and he's like, "Let's find the servers." You are an adult, and you are seeing children being doxxed on the internet, and you are seeing children slicing their foreheads on the internet, and you're not going to say anything. Like, you're a mandated reporter, my dude.
Right.
You are a and I believe in all states, at least in Cal, you're a mandated reporter. These are children.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
They kind of like, I don't know. They do weird things with reality in that way. And then maybe it is just that like people don't do it. People don't care. People are not performing the way a society only works when people behave the way they're in quote supposed to. You know what I mean? Like, so if we have all these things like mandated reporters, but he's a man and he's not going to report it because like, oh, it's just like kids or whatever. Like then things like that slide, and then Tabby gets kidnapped and has to kill a man.
Well, and yeah, right, exactly. And it seems like, I guess, drawing the real world parallels, this stuff only really comes up when there's like, oh, a kid died because of this conspiracy theory of like the Slender Man or something like that. When like there's real world consequences, that's only when things pop up. So I guess in that sense, it's like they do the very tidy happy ending where it's like they all got arrested, hooray! But things don't happen until it's way too late. And so this type of like fervor and or you can even map it to today's the easier thing to map it to of like hate speech and stuff online is relatively ungoverned and it's protected, so you can do whatever you want, and then it's only until it's too late but there's nothing that even happens from there.
It has to propose an imminent, clear and present danger, because the clear and present danger was originally the wording, and then they added like imminent, and like so it has to have a likelihood of happening and happening like quickly or soon, and like there's a lot more to that. There's actually a really good NPR Up First episode from Sunday. It's like they do extended ones where they deep dive into the constitutional amendments, and they talk about the First Amendment and kind of the court cases that have led to our current interpretation of it. It's really interesting, but it's also really upsetting because it's like,
oh, so so that's why people can say whatever the fuck they want.
I had originally, because we watched this before the election, I was like, wow, white men, the show is really saying that white men in film are bad. And I was like, it's just saying white men are bad. And they are.
Yeah. And that we should be, it is kind of playing on the fears of also online communication, how people can get suckered in on these types of things. It uses the religious people to be like... that
they're easily swayed.
Yeah.
I think that's an very intentional point, and I think that's something we should all sit and think about.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have a religion, how is it being used to manipulate you into doing something that does not align with the actual beliefs of your religion?
Right. And what sorts of also messages and things are you receiving from other channels and like online?
We never figure out what's going on with Lola.
No. Someone should really check in on her.
But last but not least, Dr. Sullivan is murdered by Archie at the end and is also low-key a villain. And why does she think the girls are like narcissistic? Like, why does she think these girls are gonna, like, they're very normal teenage girls.
Yeah.
And so like it really doesn't, because the Dr. Sullivan we know, which granted, like, we know more from this than the original Pretty Little Liars, but like she's doing her like job. Like, you never got any sort of like, I don't know, it's just weird, right?
Yeah.
It's a weird plot line.
It doesn't really ever work all that well because they aren't really... that she thinks they're so narcissistic that they'd be cool with this when they yelled at her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very strange.
They like yelled at her to not do this. So like, why would she think it would simply work?
Yeah, how was she planning on manipulating them?
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense.
No. It's very strange.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all I have.
Yeah.
Do you have any other thoughts?
No, I think it's I think final thought. I just think it's good that they tie it back around to, because they kind of flow. They never really like focus on the internet stuff all that much until this kind of final episode. So I don't think it like hits super hard, but at least it's like it's really on the money of
Oh, our doggy's crying. Let me wake him up.
Yeah, but yeah, really on the money of playing on the fears around these types of like conspiracy theories and stuff like that, but also the ways that it can be used to incite violence and sucker people in, and that the ways also, it kind of touches on with Wes of like white men feeling aggrieved that they are somehow like being budged out of the spotlight, which is the very basis of most things of like white men patriarchy and what we're seeing now. Where where people flock to, like the Joe Rogans or like the Andrew Tates, and there's other people that those are the ones I can immediately point to of that like make them feel seen, but in a way that's very negative and just reinforces like hetero white patriarchy in that sense. And that Wes is speaking directly to that of like that his like feelings of being somehow made lesser, even though he thinks of everybody else as lesser. So it's I think at least that part, it gives you some stuff to chew on, and it's very cathartic seeing Tabby run up and stab him with a pitchfork. I thought that was a very key, that she's just like not hesitating.
Yeah, that he's like, you couldn't do that, and she's like, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, the fuck I'm not. So I think it just lands way better than that first season of just like, what is this? This is just out of nowhere. So overall, I think the second season is better than the first. So it's a real
100%.
bummer that we're not getting more.
Yeah, it is unfortunate too, because I'm like, okay, like I'm kind of, I'm enjoying this more. So I'm like, I could have done more of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's intriguing to say the least of like, oh, there would be potentially a rival other 5 like dark versions of the girls. That's fun.
I thought maybe they were just like showing like a preview of like what Tabby's movie was going to look like, and they were using masks. But
I thought that would be like, oh, this is next season. But I don't know.
I don't know. All right. Well,
we've reached the end.
We've reached the end.
Yeah. So what do you think of our PLL journey?
What do you mean? Like, what do you mean? What do I think?
I mean, I'll just say, like, this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed all these series.
Okay.
I was
like, what am I? What do you mean? What do I think?
I didn't articulate it.
No, it's okay. I was just trying to pick a framework.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think probably, I like the first series is still probably the best because you just get the most out of it and the most time to dig into the characters.
And it's very fun while still addressing issues, but it also obviously, one, is a product of its time, so it has a lot of things that we probably didn't agree with then and definitely don't agree with now, and it really does focus on like girl on girl hate crime, which I appreciate that this show does not.
Yeah, I would say if someone is like trying to watch, if they don't want the investment, it's like, yeah, you could try this series, but I think it'd be worth the time because I just think with the original series, it's like, well, the first season's fine, but like it takes a little bit to pick up, like kind of like, because I think it's really fun in the original series where it's lots and lots of layers, because I love the kind of train wreck of just building mysteries on top of mysteries. It's really fun in the melodramatic sort of way. Whereas we don't get that as much in this series, which is fine. It's just kind of like a different focus.
Yeah, it was. I think the original run is the most fun. It's the most fun if you're down for like a wacky, wild ride. I think this is probably the best structured. Like it has the cleanest arc, and like has the least amount of plot holes. Or like missing tidbits of information and things like that.
Not zero. You can't make a PLL series without like some weird things missing.
No. It's impossible to create a PLL show without some plot hole or some sort of strange thing that like maybe will get answered in 6 seasons if you
right.
I think it's also hard because like as this show continued to grow, what would it have become? And like if we'd had more time with those characters, what would we have thought, you know?
Yeah.
But I've enjoyed this. I really liked the characters. I don't like horror. So like that, you know what I mean? It just, there's a certain aspect of it that like I was not as excited about some of these episodes, but I also did not know the show to be excited. You know what I mean? Like when we were watching the original run, I'm like, oh, I'm so excited for when we get to the Toby betrayal. And when we get to Ezra's writing a book and like the scene with Arya sitting in this stupid thing and in the ski thing and she's screaming and you're just like, wow, that's a moment, you know? Or when she destroys Ezra's apartment. There's a lot of good Arya like catharsis rage scenes. Like you don't get that with this show.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Imogen, you do get some really good.
You do actually. But it kind of builds as the show goes on. So once again, I wonder, like I'm comparing season 5 to 2 seasons. You know what I mean? Like it's not a fair comparison.
Right. Exactly. I think that's the biggest detriment to this is the short runtime.
It's also like The Perfectionist could have been a really fun show.
Yep.
That was actually like a really interesting plot.
Yeah.
I was like enjoying it.
I had no right time with it. I think my biggest beef with that is that there was like too much in the background. It was just kind of like, can we talk more about this like surveillance state?
Well, I think they thought they were going to have a lot of time to talk about it.
Yeah.
We'll never find out about the people in the mirrors.
Right, exactly. And I think that's the biggest improvement on this series. It's like both were intended to have 10 episodes for their seasons and they did a better job at like telling
10
one
and 8.
Oh, right, yeah. But I meant The Perfectionist had had 10, was also originally built as 10, and it felt like the first half of a season.
Exactly.
Which is a bummer. But I will never forget, The Perfectionist probably gave one of my favorite scenes out of the entire thing, which is where they shoot what's his face? the British guy.
Uh-huh.
And then Ava with ADR runs up and plants
evidence.
Well, oh God, what was her name? He's like crouched over him crying.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, oh.
I wish I'd let that show cook a little, you know?
Totally. But, yeah, I had a good time.
Yeah, we made it.
We did. So this is our 114th episode. Let's see.
Of Pretty Little Liars specific.
Yeah, is it 113th? Because that number is a little bit off.
Okay.
By one because of the closed envelope episode where I made the guesses on the first A.
Oh, yeah.
We never did it again because I kept getting spoiled. So, and one of them I knew from the beginning anyway. But yeah, so we are now going to be taking a couple weeks off through the Thanksgiving holiday. Enjoy some time.
So we can give
chilling.
thanks.
So we can at least make ourselves some good food. And then we'll be back in December to start Riverdale. Which will just be the pilot. We'll start with the pilot. One episode.
We'll start with one episode because Riverdale kind of like goes at a pace that is like the going to commercial cliffhanger is often like what other shows would end a season on.
And I remember that first season being like really well done, and it immediately starts to lose its track exactly in the next season because they went from like 13 episodes to 24. I think they like doubled up the amount of episodes. So, but we shall see if that holds up.
Yeah,
it'll be a lot of us, I think, reminiscing too about being like, oh my God, look at all these like actors, they're so young, and like, oh right, I remember this stuff. But I think we should probably try and not spoil big future things.
Yeah, we can try not to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they know about Archie and the Bear, but
exactly,
who doesn't?
Or the epic highs and lows of high school football. I don't remember that in context of the episode though, so we'll have to see.
I think he says it to Veronica.
He says it to one of the.
Or does he say it to one of the guys?
Yeah, can't remember if it's when he's at the penitentiary or not.
Oh no, it is 100%. Well, they should have put the penitentiary in wherever they had it there. Anyway.
Oh yeah, in Riverdale. I think it's in a town over or something.
Probably.
Maybe it's in Ravenswood and we didn't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, you can find us on all your audio podcast platforms of choice at Dead Ends. You can also find us on YouTube at Dead_Ends. Like, comment, subscribe, give us 5 stars on your podcast player of choice. It all helps us. And you can also, just send us emails. We're not really taking questions for anything. But you can send us questions to deadendspeakcast@gmail.com for just general emails and things. And again, we'll be back in a few weeks. So take care of yourselves, do well out there, and we've officially found out everything. I know everything.
But we're still going to be here.
That's right.
And we love you.
We love you so much.